Hey everyone, and welcome back to another edition of Outdoor Hospitality Weekly. I'm your host, Alex Burkett, and I'm joined as always by Matt Whittemore and Adam Elsergani. We're all from Roll Campgrounds, and today we're going to dive into a really cool topic, talking about the mix of outdoor hospitality and technology. But guys, before we jump into it, the podcast has really taken off in the first couple episodes with our Campground Economics series. And so if you're a listener out there and you've been loving and enjoying the show on your favorite podcast platform, we invite you to give us a 5-star review and share this with a friend and somebody who might benefit from some of our expertise. But guys, I'm going to kick our conversation off today as maybe you're a new investor and you're coming into this not really realizing where we came from and the landscape that's taken place in this space. So how really has technology evolved from maybe more of mom and pop operators to really where we are today? I guess, Matt, I'll start it with you and kick it off there.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Alex. Really interesting question. I think where it pops up most commonly is with booking engines, website technology, online bookings, OTAs. I mean, there's tons of areas where it can pop up, but I think in an industry where technology is slowly and finally breaking its way into the industry, that's where you see the overwhelming majority of evolution of technology and technology sort of revolutionizing the space with campgrounds getting online with their bookings, which I think is still a pretty relatively low percentage of campgrounds in general. So it's interesting to see.
Yeah, I think compared to, right, like the overall number of campgrounds, those not utilizing that tech, at least from the booking end, is surprising, but it's a serious game changer. I'd add just to Matt's kind of initial list that there are a bunch of implications for things like security, everything from automated gates to the kinds of cameras and doorbells and ways that we connect with campers and protect campers, as well as just what we may or may not need to provide to campers who have new expectations in it, which is probably a hot button issue that we'll get into down the way.
Yeah, and that's a really great point, guys, right? And talking about how campgrounds are currently utilizing online booking systems. I mean, I've seen data from 2019 talking about the total travel industry bookings being rated around 150 million bookings. Now, of course, that includes things like hotels, airlines, campgrounds. This is a wide host of travel accommodations in that range. But even we're seeing parks slowly transition to that point where roughly 65% of all reservations from parks who have an online booking system are actually coming online, meaning less burdens on your phone systems, less burdens on your staff to be able to answer that, and where they can actually go in and engage with different people. So I guess let's sort of briefly expand on that point and talk about, how are campgrounds currently utilizing online bookings and what has that meant from that transition of a mom and pop operator who's taking stuff down by hand to now today where all of our parks are utilizing online booking and we're able to get better clarity into that. Maybe Adam, can you talk about your on the ground experience using these systems?
Yeah, so I think first and foremost, right, like online booking provides us an opportunity to actually engage where the campers are coming from earlier, right, before they get there. And it allows us to do that while we're, out and about on the campgrounds engaging guests, especially those systems that automatically place campers into a spot, which also takes off that lift of juggling around different rigs of different sizes and different dependencies, right? I was reading a little bit about, right, like in the KOA reports about how many camps or campers are looking for spots they're not able to find. And I think it's also, that's the other big question here is from the boots on the ground, it's easier for us. For campers, I think it creates faster and easier availability to actually finding the spots they're looking for and give faster feedback.
And Matt, as you purchase parks and put online booking systems into place, how have you really been utilizing this?
So as someone who didn't know much about the space before really jumping into it with 2 feet, I knew I had to get online. The first park I bought had no online presence. really at all and no online booking. So I started with Rover Pass, and it punched me right in the face. As soon as we flipped that on with Rover Pass, we got like 13 bookings in like 6 hours, which, not a huge amount, but it was surprising. No marketing, no announcement that we were even on Rover Pass. So it just shows you the reach of the internet. And I think that's the key. You've got to market, you got to do all these things, but even without the marketing, mom and pop owners who have come around to just getting the reach of the internet on their side, they see immense impact there. And it's funny when you talk to these mom and pop owners, the number one thing I hear is that they're concerned about who is going to book. There's like a fear thing about online bookings. Well, I can't talk to them on the phone, or whatever. I can't kind of vet the person to make sure they're not a serial killer or like a drug dealer or something, as if you could tell that by a quick phone conversation. But that's always been the top thing is, well, I can't control who's booking, which, I mean, there is maybe some validity to that, but I don't see a world where we're going to own any campgrounds without online booking going forward.
Yeah, exactly. And guys, I think, that was really sort of the first evolution in the tech part of this transition for a lot of mom and pop owners, but there are a lot of other pieces to this pie when it comes to implementing technology and systems at parks. So let's dive in a little bit and talk about some of the hardware and more, I guess you could call it software or online options that are available. And we're just going to run through sort of a list that I've got here and give our input on how we've implemented these, how parks have been successful using this, and really, kind of why you should consider this, adding this into your operation. And Matt, I think what goes along with that is really what payment processor and the ability to take different types of payments with the retail POS operation. Can you talk about that and sort of what it means to have good availability of different payment options available?
Yeah, it's something I'm pretty passionate about, having worked through this with a few different parks. My philosophy is that it should be the easiest thing in the world for people to give us money. If somebody wants to pay with Apple Pay or a jar of pennies, we should be equipped to accept that payment. I think prioritizing the operations of the staff and the business over the guest experience is a huge mistake. I've seen that in a lot of cases where we don't take checks, we don't take cash. You can pay through the online system, or, you got two different options to pay. And it's like, okay, I understand that creates a lot of convenience for the internal operation, but we should not be causing friction for people to give us money. So my stance is PayPal, Venmo, whatever online options, if there's a preferred payment method, let's figure out how to accept it. Texting links to people's phones, emailing them. We see parks with the RFID wristbands, and like at Roll Campgrounds, we kind of use the hotel like folio approach of just put it on my room charge, put it on my campsite charge. I think that's a really cool way to approach it. That just creates a lot less friction for people coming into the store, kids coming to buy ice cream or gear or a t-shirt or whatever. People are just so much more likely to throw it on the campsite charge when we reduce the level of friction for that. So
yeah, exactly. And I'll touch on another piece of hardware that I found really successful. I don't know that we've had yet to implement them here at Roll, but it's been successful at parks across the industry. And that really comes down to smart metering systems. Companies out there like Wild Energy and others that I'm sure exist allow you to upgrade your utility meter, whether that's electric or water, add sensor and data monitoring systems where you can actually get fed the amount of kilowatt usage or the amount of water usage and actually bill that back to the camper. And so, sort of integrating this payment processing, into that philosophy, right, where you can actually use this hardware device on your utilities and begin to make it easy for people to pay that bill and use their electric. And it's a way for your utilities to get off the expense sheet and really bill them back to your customer for longer term stays, even nightly stays. I've seen them be implemented at some premium high end resorts down in Florida or out in California. It's a really, really unique system and something that, again, I don't know that we have yet to implement here, but is certainly on our radar as far as hardware and some cool technology that exists in the space. So the fourth piece of hardware that I think exists that I want to dive into, guys, is really anything as it relates to security. And I'm sure we could go a million different directions here. From Adam, you mentioned it earlier, gates and cameras and different systems. Adam, how have we sort of used that sort of approach of security systems and having good access control and monitoring of these locations?
Yeah, so I mean, one is that having a good set of security cameras, not only, right, like it's not just about watching the campers, it's about making them feel safer, right? Like all of our cameras, at least in Geneseo, actually light up as you pass them by. Our bathrooms are strategically located to be private, but it's really comforting to a lot of campers to know that the lights that they're like as they go into space that they'll to just open up is just like around sort of like around retail space, and to experiment with camps and overnight spaces by using security cameras, trail cameras, and it's let us get out ahead of issues as they arrive, responding to that stuff.
And Matt, I know another piece of security that we've talked about implementing at some properties is a campground gate system for access control. Can you maybe just talk about what the importance is of that and why a park might even consider adding a gate in the first place?
Yeah, we've invested a lot of mental resources into figuring out what the right solution is with gate and security in general. So for me as an operator, from the standpoint of security and safety, I feel like we need to have the utmost control and transparency into who is in our campground, what vehicles are in our campground, are they registered to a campsite, just free and easy access to a campground. While at these mom and pop campgrounds, it's probably gone fine. There's still just a liability there. And, what we're offering to our customers is a safe, secure place to camp. So I think as part of our promise and our offering is to offer just that. So the solution we really love is a license plate reader, because that's kind of kills two birds with one stone, in that you're kind of jointly monitoring the vehicle access with the person's access. So it's a gate, automated gate. Somebody pulls up, reads their license plate, and gives them access, and then all that data is stored. So it even gives you like customer data too that you can use. You can see, oh, so and so customer never even showed up for the whole season, or so and so customer entered and exited the gate 200 times throughout the 6-month season. You can kind of glean data on customer behavior. So I think there's a lot of really interesting things for that. Also, it's a source of revenue in that, in a largely seasonal campground, a stream of revenue that we're really keen on maximizing is guest fees, visitor fees. So that kind of naturally is just built in. When a vehicle shows up that does not have a license plate that's registered, they have to ring the bell or get in contact with the office through the phone system that's there. We have eyes on the vehicle, we have eyes on the person. We can ensure that they come to the office to register. Who are you here to visit? Pay the $10 per day visitor fee, and you could see a $30,000 gate investment turn into $50,000 a year, pretty much right to the bottom line in terms of visitor fees and guest fees. So pretty compelling in terms of security, but also nice revenue generator.
And then the last thing I'll touch on the software side, and we'll likely do a full-blown podcast episode on this at a later date, is really Wi-Fi systems. This has been probably the number one investment. Almost a third of all parks doing CapEx upgrades say that Wi-Fi is a part of that process. And many parks are finding that this is a necessity for campers, as we've found, for people traveling, working on the road, and whether you're using a fiber system, doing broadband, any number of providers. I mean, there's hundreds out there from local and national providers who serve campgrounds. This is definitely one of those tech items that's on people's list and that customers really are just expecting. It's not a want anymore. It's almost a need as far as utilities go, and building that into the profile. So, guys, I think let's switch gears here and talk about software from the standpoint of some online systems, in addition to your regular booking engine, that are sort of interesting. On the online side of things, when it comes to automation, we're looking at our communications, our outward-facing marketing. Can you talk about sort of the importance of that in the pre-arrival process before a guest has even checked in, and then what that process looks like after they've left the park?
Great question. And I think really everything we do in terms of our online presence is geared towards capturing customer data and doing that in a way that we can remarket to them. So we have Instagram, we have Facebook, we have any other social media platform. We're going to run campaigns on there that is going to drive followers, drive website traffic, but also drive people to our email list. You know, email marketing is a huge part of what we do and what you're asking about, in that we have so many automated messages that go out before the camper shows up, while the camper is on site, after the camper leaves, you know, reminding them to book for their favorite weekend and favorite site next year. And there's so many ways to integrate that through all the different pieces of technology, through the Wi-Fi. You know, there's there's systems where people log onto the Wi-Fi, like at a hotel, and you put in your email and your name and whatever. That's if you know, there's a group of 5 that camp with you and one person booked it, yeah, you have that one person's email. But if those other 4 people log onto the Wi-Fi and you capture those 4 additional emails, you turn that one booking into 5 potential customers in the future. So we try to have a holistic, long-term view towards all these things. You know, it's building that customer relationship. It's staying top of mind to being the first camping choice, you know, for when they plan that next trip. I mean, we see it where people book their next trip in the office as they're leaving, which is really powerful. So, you know, I think that's the key to this industry. It's not a tech forward industry in a lot of ways. It's an old fashioned industry. So it's marrying that hospitality and personal face-to-face connection. You don't want to leverage technology in a way that, you know, sacrifices all the great things about our industry that have nothing to do with technology. You want to use technology to further that relationship and that connection. So it's a really tricky, interesting balance that I think all of us operators are still trying to find.
Yeah, exactly, Matt. I think that's a really great caveat and a good note to sort of end things on, is just don't lose sight of the business we're really in. We're not a tech business. We're not a real estate business. We really are in the hospitality business. So guys, with that, I think we'll wrap up today's episode on outdoor hospitality and tech. I think we painted a really great picture for everyone if they're looking, again, to implement these systems into their campground and really sort of level up the operation in a way as we head into the off season. So we appreciate everyone again for listening. Be sure to leave us that 5-star review and share this episode with anyone who might find it valuable. And we will see you back here next week for another great show. Thanks, guys.